We have no time to waste in Soccer We Trust YouTube fan because we were supposed to have U.S. men's national team legendary striker Brian McBride on the show, but he is AWOL, kind of like Charlie, once a week. So hit like and subscribe to show your appreciation for all of our energy and fun, and let's get after it.
Yes, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Joe Max Moore's favorite podcast in Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Trashcan Conrad alongside Hollywood Heath Pierce and Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies.
And we have plenty to talk about based on the performance of the U.S. men's national team player pool this past weekend. Most specifically, the 2-assist performance by the getting better every single week, Yunus Musah, in his club's 5-1 win over Getafe. But we were supposed to have a special show today with Brian McBride, absolute legend, 3-time World Cup player for us, U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame member. But he decided to pull his best Chuck Davies, and he's out. We can't get, no, I'm just kidding. He had some technical difficulties. We're going to have to get him back on a future show. I was excited to talk to him, though, Charlie, you in particular. I actually have a question about Brian McBride for you, Charlie, and then Heath, I'll get to you on this, and then we can get into, obviously, the recap of the weekend. But did you take anything away from Brian McBride's game that you could apply to your own, or do you think it just wasn't possible because you're half his size?
Yeah, no, what I took, I think the most from watching Brian McBride every day in training was just the way he carried himself, just like absolute top professional, and the way he timed his jumps. Great. He had this body position to create the distance between him and the center back, or him and anybody that was trying to attempt to jump with him. He could lean back. It was almost like a lean back, and then that allowed him to.
Oh, Charlie froze, Heath.
Yep.
He got the lean back and he froze.
You know what I mean? We called him out for so long throughout this holiday weekend for saying it was because of the holiday that now he's playing games to prove that he's got a weak internet connection.
He does. You know what? Respect to Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies for proving that. All right. So McBride did play with Charlie in the 2008 Olympics. They did have a crossover. Did you ever crossover with McGrizzle, as we used to call him, Heath Pierce?
No, I mean, going into 2006, right? Your World Cup. I just gotten called in the first time in October. I never got the chance to play with him or have him in camp when I was in camp for any of those. I don't believe, because I think, you know, my few caps, I had a January camp in there, which he wasn't part of. Obviously, I had my first game against Scotland, and then my last one, which I believe he would have been involved in, was the Germany game pre-World Cup. And so I never got a chance to cross paths with him. However, he was doing this at MLS All-Star. There was the MLS Next homegrown game, and he was doing
this past All-Star
game in Minnesota. He was doing a live interview, which I didn't know was live, and we were just making our way up into the stands, and he was, you know, somebody with like a stick mic and talking to him in the stands, and I just went and sat right in front of him, saying hi to Ernie Stewart and some other people, and not knowing it was live. And then one of my colleagues, our COO John, was like, "Hey man, people are sending me these videos. Apparently we just went and sat right in front of this live interview happening right now and didn't had no recollection of it happening." So I gave him the nod. He gave me the nod back when I was walking up the stairs. And I realized what that nod was that like he's live in an interview right now with the mic going back and forth. And I just sat like directly in front of him with a camera looking up. It was like a high school stadium. So it was like, wasn't like this big built out place where they were like isolated. I just sat in the bleachers right in front of them, probably blocking their shot for a few minutes. So that was a fun thing to find out later on.
But Brian, being the true professional that he is, and I had that opportunity to see that firsthand as well, Chuck, and welcome back. That professional.
Charlie, by the way, I'm not buying. You just pulled your internet plug to prove that you've got some internet connectivity issues to justify the 3-day weekend you took, saying there was no internet there. I get it. It's a good long con and it's well played, but I'm not buying it.
Yeah. Well, I'm home now, so the issues are not the same on the Cape. I can promise.
It's on Jimmy's end. Yeah,
it's clearly.
But in case I did miss out on the Brian McBride talk, I will say just his level of professionalism and his timing in the way he approaches every aerial duel is just second to none. I mean, Henrik Larsson is probably the only person I remember saying, "Oh my God, he can win anything." Whether the defender's 6'6", he is going to win it just because of his timing, and he gives a little bump, and that little bump in that cause of situation, in that situation, puts the defender off balance and allows you to win And so I remember taking that from him, being like, okay, I can challenge anybody, whether it's Carlos Puyol or Lucio, and I do remember winning those challenges and thinking, thanks, Brian McBride.
Yeah, the guy was unbelievable. I had the opportunity to play against him when I was very young, coming into MLS, and
What was that, about 31? You were about 31, Jimmy, when you came into MLS?
Yeah. I was such a late bloomer. I didn't get my first crack at MLS.
Ah, Jimmy was on the young end of his career, around 29, 30.
No,
It was awesome. One of the things that he did, and I was going to tell him this if and when he comes on the show, and I'm sure he will in the future. There's technical difficulties are always a pain in the ass, especially on Labor Day. But what I'll say is he when we were doing the handshakes before a game, he had said something to me essentially like, I think you're a good player, which I thought now in hindsight, maybe save that for after the fact instead of before the game. But I remember you get these.
I hear him say that.
Yeah,
I'm not believing that one until I hear it.
Jimmy's
from
creating
his,
Yeah,
from
yeah,
from
well,
his lips.
creating his own
maybe-
legend again.
No. I'm just saying that you guys have had it too. Don't bullshit me.
Hey, I want to shake your hand.
When you
you
get
are
these
a hell of a
little
player.
these little like
Hey,
pats
man.
on the back.
I know I should do this after the game, but I gotta say, you're the best player I've ever seen in my
That's not
entire
what he
life.
said.
Can I get your
That's not what he
jersey
said.
before-
Yeah.
Listen, I
Let's take off
was
Your
your
shirt right now. Take off
no,
your
no,
shirt
no,
right
no.
now.
I was
want
a no-name. Listen, I switched jerseys with him because I had to out of respect. I was a no-name young defender at age 31. That
Is that a
you
fire
need these
jersey?
little moments of praise to kind of help continue pushing down that path, because sometimes you just don't get that. I'm working with a kid who plays for Minnesota United. Coaches don't even talk to him. Don't give him any feedback whatsoever. So those little moments of
Which
praise,
player?
especially from a peer, right? When you get it from a peer, it means more, because the coaches, there's results and all this type of stuff. But when you get it from a peer, it especially a peer that you look up to, like Brian McBride, it makes a difference. I know you guys, you give me a hard time, but I know you guys have had that
I know.
in your life as well.
No, for sure.
It's a hugely validating experience, especially in that period, even any period. But Jimmy, your journey, your pathway, right? Like, I know that every step of the way, at least this was for me, you feel, you give yourself a little bit of credit, but you know that, like, I'm not going to give myself too much, because like that's a vulnerability. I got to keep going on to the next thing, on to the next thing. But to have somebody else, I say this a lot, and is like talking about how good your own birthday party or the party you